the ACT Substance Use Echo. My name's Leo, and I'm the new project facilitator for the Substance Use Echo Hub. So if you could please drop your name and contact information in the chat, it would be greatly appreciated. This just kind of helps us network with each other and helps us contact one another if we have an idea or we want to share a resource. We are recording today's session for educational and quality improvement purposes, so when joining and participating in this session, you are consenting to being recorded. So if you don't wish to be recorded, you can disconnect from the call now. ECHO is a participatory and interactive community. We have our presenters, stakeholders, and community members all communicating and supporting each other during the session. Participants are expected to be engaged in asking questions. So for today, after the didactic presentation, we can just delve into those questions. And case narratives and discussions are a really great way to get support on a difficult case and apply these strategies from our ECHO sessions to real-world problems. If you haven't presented a case narrative yet, please consider doing so by just contacting projectscope@usu.edu. That's our email, and if you feel comfortable, you should also turn on your cameras just so we can see each other and have just a really nice network. We also must remember to protect our individual privacy. We do work with a lot of sensitive topics, so please take a moment to de-identify those situations when we're speaking with others. Hub members will have an asterisk by their name, so if you're unsure about a statement or a question that you're about to ask, you can always reach out to them. The Hub member that's monitoring today's chat is going to be Kurt Phillips, so he'll have that asterisk by his name, and he can answer those concerns, comments, or questions that you guys have that you're dropping in the chat. There are three key components to today's ECHO session. The first is our didactic speaker, who will be Shannon Cox from Journey of Hope, Utah. Our second key component is our case presentation, which will be presented by Janelle Preston. And our third key component is professional networking. Networking can happen just in our breakout rooms by reaching out to someone in the chat, etc. ECHO sessions are a really great way to network with others from similar organizations, and we can get just great ideas from each other and apply those to those situations that we have. Renaming your profile, we do ask that you rename your profile to your first and last name, your state, your job title, and your organization. So you can do that by just clicking the participants icon in the bottom menu of the Zoom window. You click on your own profile, and that's how you rename your profile in the dialog box. And there's that little example right there. In raising your hand, this is a really helpful feature if you have a question or a comment and you don't want to interrupt the facilitator or you don't want to interrupt the presenter. And to use this feature, you just have to hover your mouse over the Zoom window to locate the menu at that bottom screen. You select participants to open the participant window, and then you click the raise hand option that's right at the bottom of that little window that just opened. Pre-registration. Pre-registration is really good because it can allow you to receive the materials that we have in advance. So if our presenter has something that they want to share with you guys, we can always email that to you before the session. We can even email you the presentation slides from that session before it happens. So if you'd like to pre-register, you can always do so by the weekly announcement that we send out, or you can email projectscope@usu.edu. And getting credit for attendance. Janelle will be dropping a survey link to get that credit for attendance, and that credit is going to be presented in the form of a certificate of attendance. We really do value your feedback, and we always use those survey results to improve the quality of the ECHO sessions that we hold. It lets us know how we can help you a lot better. And we also have a place in our survey that asks for an email, a phone number, and a mailing address. That's just so we can send you some free swag. Sometimes we'll send out things after you've taken 3 surveys or if you've attended more than 3 sessions. So it's just for us to send you some free things. And who doesn't like some free things? And Canvas. Canvas is the platform that we use to put resources from today's session in past sessions for you to access. So if you would like an invite to our Canvas page, you can always email projectscope@usu.edu, and we can help you get set up on our Canvas page so you can access those resources. In case studies, I just want to put in another case study plug because I think they're really important. You can always share information about real life situations, and you hear from your colleagues about recommendations that you can apply to those situations. It's so you can receive this valuable feedback that you take back and apply. So if you're interested in presenting a case study, or if you want one of the facilitators or one of us to present, you could always just email projectscope@usu, and we can help you get that set up as well. And remember to follow us on our social media pages. This is where we post a lot of updates and reminders. So it's kind of just a way that we can stay connected with each other. So when you scan those QR codes, it'll take you to those pages, and you should really follow if you want to be kept updated on the ECHO project and what we're doing. And you should also join our Facebook group just by scanning that QR code over on this little side. And it's just so we can continue our discussions after the sessions, and you can also receive updates on upcoming sessions. It's also just a really good way for us to network with each other, so we can just always see people from other organizations commenting and getting these ideas from each other. So yeah, that's all I have for today, and I'm going to be passing the time over to Shannon Cox, who is from Journey of Hope, and she'll be our presenter today.
Shannon, you're on mute, so we can't hear you. Shannon, you're still
Shannon.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm talking through my phone because hopefully you'll get less feedback that way because I am on an ancient computer. So I know it looks like I'm still on mute, but I'm actually I'm on my phone and I'm on the computer. So sorry to confuse everybody. Let's see, Windows, screen, touch screen. I forget this one. The slideshow. Can you guys see the slideshow? Are you guys seeing the slideshow? Because I can't see you now.
Not yet, we haven't.
Okay. Escape, go back. Okay. No, entire screen. Screen. Tab. Okay, now I can grab it. And share. Slideshow. Now you're seeing it, right?
Yeah, I'm seeing it now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's all I'm going to see, I think, now. So, all right, so we were asked to help create a toolkit for community health workers because we kind of have a niche that we work with dual diagnosis. We started working 11 years ago with women, specifically coming out of prisons. I fell in love with women in prison. I know that sounds crazy. I was a police officer, a parole agent that worked specifically with women coming out of prison. I had a trauma history, significant trauma history, and I could see that most of the people that I was working with in corrections had trauma histories. I started asking them about their trauma histories, and every single person I asked had a trauma history. And I was like, wait a minute, every single person has sexual abuse trauma and physical abuse trauma prior to their addiction. We hadn't been taught about ACE. That research really wasn't out 30 years ago. And I was hearing about ACE. Every single person that was addicted that I was working with, that was angry, that was addicted, that I was supposed to arrest, had horrific childhood trauma histories. And so what I was realizing is that trauma came before the addiction. Trauma came before the anger. And so I thought, wow, you know, all of these women we're supposed to arrest have trauma long before they're ever addicted. And the women I was supposed to arrest specifically, I was arresting for nonviolent drug addicted crimes. And so I thought, you know, what if we could create spaces, especially for the women, because most of them were there for nonviolent offenses, that were alternatives to incarceration. So I became a supervisor with adult probation and parole and started creating the Women's Treatment Resource Center, got trained on the national level in evidence-based practices, learned about trauma-informed and trauma-responsive care, became a national trainer for the Department of Justice and the National Institute of Corrections, and got to train in multiple states, brought that program back to the state of Utah, created Alternative sentencing recommendations for gender responsive trauma informed care in Utah. That went over great, depending on which leadership was in corrections. Sometimes it was a lock them up and throw away the key leadership. Sometimes it was a let's reduce recidivism leadership. It depended on the leadership, depended on the governor. But the right thing to do was to keep people out in the community with their families, especially people that were not violent. And statistically, women are not violent. So I retired at 20 years and created Journey of Hope, and that's where we started the community health work. I'm going to introduce two other people that do this work with me side by side. One of the things that we changed about Journey of Hope during the pandemic, I set up Journey of Hope 11 years ago. And what I didn't realize is that I had set it up like a regular business structure. That's how I was taught to set it up, with me at the top and everyone else underneath me, and to pay everyone in a regular business structure. A really powerful mentor leader came into the organization. She was a feminist economist from Turkey, Hande Togrul. And she said, Shannon, you've created yourself as a white Jesus. You've hired all these amazing women of color underneath you. They can never be you. They're formerly incarcerated. They've been trafficked. They've been abused, and they can never take your place. And this is an unethical structure from my viewpoint. And I was like, what do we do? And she said, dismantle this kind of white supremacist structure that you've created. And I'm like, okay, teach us. And so we created an egalitarian worker self-directed nonprofit. Everyone makes the same when they start. Everyone gets a 3% COLA. We look at what is a livable wage in Utah. We look at that every few years as we can make changes to income. Everyone starts at $23 an hour. Everyone gets a 3% COLA every year. We've had to scale back how many people we can hire right now because we've lost so much money over the last couple years in grants, but that's where we are, right? Like, no one's more important than anybody else in this work. Whether you're writing grants or you're serving people on the ground, no one is more important than anybody else. And I'll try not to get emotional, but I've learned lots of lessons. I understand my privilege, and you're going to meet some really powerful women. And so the next person I want to introduce in this work, and this is why community health work is so important. There are people that won't work with me because I'm white and because I was a cop, but they will work with this woman, is Mary Serawop. And she is a powerful truth teller. She speaks truth to power. And most people don't appreciate that. But I'll tell you, I knew when I met her that she was going to be a powerful person on this earth doing this work. And I am so grateful that she's here doing it with us. This is Mary Serawop. Mary?
Hi, guys. So I started by telling you guys I'm not going to be starting this. But I did say that I was going to be telling my truth. So when I first started, I didn't know my power. I'm a Native American from here in Utah, the Northern Ute tribe. That is my ancestry. I didn't think that I was going to be able to be heard, to be accepted into this. Sorry, my cat keeps jumping up and down. I didn't know that I was going to be accepted into this world. I honestly had a lot of, I think it's called, I can't think of the name of it, but it's where you don't feel good enough in the role that you have. There's a specific, word for it, and I know it. I'm just a little nervous right now. When I met Shannon, she had started the RTC program, and it was a good program. It helped a lot of women identify that there was traumas in their lives and where it all stemmed from. For me, however, I couldn't hear it then. I wasn't in a place where I could hear such vulnerable suggestions because I had grew up in an environment where it was live or die, you know. It was so impacted in generational trauma. I don't know how to express, and if I did go into expression, it would be defeating everything that we're trying to talk about today. So I'll just refrain from that and just say it was a hard life. I ended up coming into the prison system because of the racism in my hometown. I was used as an example, I do believe, because of the charges were DUI, and it wasn't a really like it is a people crime is what they call it. And but there was the past trauma that I had endured that led to the alcohol, that led to my want to not be on this earth anymore. So Shannon saw through all that. Needless to say, she saw through that and said that I was power and said that I had impact, and there was people out there that wanted to hear my story. But like I said, I couldn't hear any of that. At the time, she explained ACE and A scores, and when you're above like a 6 and like it is just so impactful. I was, however, at a 10 plus. And so she was like, you have trauma, girl. There is trauma, trauma, trauma. And I was just like, well, what is trauma? You know, whatever, lady, you're white. You don't know what you're talking about, you know? And so even back then I didn't, there was the separation of the white versus colored. You know what I mean? No matter what kind of color you are, there's just this big old gap between the just being able to relate. You know, I am culturally bound in my traditions where I'm more than you. I'm culturally bound to believe that the white men are the reason why my people had ended up in the situation they are in on reservations and stuff. And that's the belief that I had. It took me, I want to say 15, 20 years before I finally believed that, hey, there is trauma in my life and I'm ready to go through and talk about it. I had to learn to talk about it first. And I had really good mentors who walked me through EMDR. And through that experience, I believe that, you know, I could share this knowledge with my sisters. And I have a lot of sisters that are incarcerated. And I'm not just saying my Native American sisters. I have a lot of sisters who are incarcerated that are still there, that are coming out, that I help on a regular basis. I'm the first point of contact when it comes to sisters in incarceration looking to change their lives. I help with because I had to go through the system by myself, you know. I had to fight the resources to get to where I can believe in myself. I think I was working in construction when Shannon had reached out to me about this community health grant that served Native American people, and how my story would be very impactful. I didn't believe her. I remember just being like, I'm just gonna go to this interview and we'll just see how it goes. You know, we'll just shoot for it. I was in my construction gear still, like going away from where I was being in, where I was flagging at, going away to the, like I was going to the bathroom or something, you know, and going on there with my construction gear and being like, hi, I'm Mary Serawop. And then they started going through the questions and stuff. And I'm like, oh yeah, I have a lot of experience in that. And a week later, they were just like, we really want to hire you. And are you available for the position? We're gonna have the position in January. And I was like, 6 months away? Yeah, sure, I can hold off till then. And that's when it changed my life. Having the support of the community grant and the lived experience, I can't express and tell you how much it has changed my life professionally. It's I'm able to talk about this story. I've never told my story before, so I'm a little rusty. This is all new to me. And so you guys are the first ones to hear this part of my story. But I was able to leave a domestic violence abusive relationship when I started working with Journey of Hope. I found my worth, my strength. I was able to leave, and I've been able to pull a lot of other women that are in survival mode and that are going through the resources. I've helped them obtain employment, get a place of their own, work through the resources. I've been able to apply what I know as a formerly incarcerated individual working through the resources. I've been able to apply that in a lot of situations with the sisters that I help. Later on, I think we're going to be talking a lot of impact, and I'll share a lot of the impact that I have personally felt later on. But with the right support and the right people to speak up for me, I had like I said, I had a domestic violence relationship that ended up in a charge. It was dismissed because of the voices that I had behind me. I had talked to my APP agent. I had talked to my therapist. I had talked to these impactful people that were supposed to have my back. You know, I had talked to them about this relationship before it got to this point. And so when I had gotten charged, I was taken to jail. I was locked up for about 5 months. But in the end, the judge, the prosecutor had seen the manipulation behind this woman, and it was dismissed. And I was able to come back home to my family with it not being available, but without having a community health worker, somebody to believe me, somebody to listen to me. I probably would have not come back out and continued this work. I was very blessed in that situation. I have been very blessed to be in this line of work, and I have been blessed to work with a lot of other people that want to help and that want to see like good in people and good in the system. And so, I mean, like, I have enjoyed living, guiding everybody that I have helped through the resource. And I don't stop. I donate hours. You know, I'm not supposed to, but I do because I believe in this work. I don't know what else I'm supposed to share, but I just wanted to share my story and let everybody be able to hear how impactful this kind of work has been and how it's changed my life. I enjoy everybody. Thank you.
Mary. Miss Sherry, were you able to get on? Were you able to join us on the Zoom? Miss Sherry is a powerful, impactful leader. She's the woman on the left in this slide, and she has been doing this work for 35 years in the community. And I can tell you that there are multiple Baptist churches that refer survivors to her and victims in need to her. She worked for Valley for 25 years and started working with us about 10 years ago, and was a board member on Sojourner Group, and then led Sister Circle for survivors of sexual and domestic violence in the community, and has been a powerful mentor to all of us. She's kind of our matriarch. We call her Miss Sherry out of respect. And so Miss Sherry, are you here? She's very, very powerful mentor, leader, survivor leader in this work. And if she is able to join us, she wanted to join us, but she was having trouble with her technology. So if she ends up joining us, I am the founder of Journey of Hope. I'm a survivor of sexual violence in my childhood and domestic violence. I was in law enforcement for 20 years. Realized that violence was the main cause of people's addiction. Long before I learned about ACE and adverse childhood experiences, I was finding out about it. As I was supposed to arrest people, I realized that before they were ever addicted, they were abused. And I just didn't feel good about putting people in incarceral settings, and started falling in love with the people that I was supposed to arrest, and seeing the humanity in the work, and started creating spaces specifically for women in corrections. I built the Women's Treatment Resource Center, a $500,000 building behind Orange Street, to try and work with women to find avenues and programs for them to stop putting them in prisons and jails, especially nonviolent women. There's no reason to incarcerate them for $36,000 a year when we can keep them in the community for $8,000 a year. That's where community health work, case management comes in, and interrupting that trauma to prison to early death pipeline. As soon as I could retire after 20 years, I created the Journey of Hope 11 years ago, and we have worked with over 5,000 women, youth and their families. Almost immediately, we realized that the women that we were serving were dual diagnosis. They had trauma, so they had anxiety, depression, PTSD, and addictions. And in the addictions, they were being violently abused, tortured, trafficked. There was a lot of domestic violence. And so we became LAP trained. So we're LAP partners, lethality assessment protocol partners in the community. That's something that community health workers, we'd like to train other community health workers to become LAP trained, as part of our collaboration with other community health workers, so that they can do that 11-question protocol with their clients, so that they can do domestic violence work with the people that they already know and trust, and place them in safe domestic violence spaces, understanding how lethal the situation is. We're also part of the Attorney General's Human Trafficking Task Force. Our women are very vulnerable to be sex trafficked. Sex trafficking is a huge issue in the state of Utah. We're part of the pipeline, the dope pipeline, into California and Vegas. And our children are disappearing just as quickly, especially our tribal children. We're top 10 in the nation for missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls and Two-Spirits. And it's kind of a free zone. They can't prosecute non-natives on native land. So non-natives go onto the land, steal the children, and they're out. So, I mean, we have missing Native children all over this country, but especially on our Native tribal lands. We have a lot of missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirits. So that we're missing lots of children every day. Our women are telling us they're getting drugged in the bars, and they're waking up in Vegas in a room full of girls and women. So it's happening quite a bit. We know the Blood Gang here is doing a lot of human trafficking with the Blood Gang in Las Vegas. And I don't know that they're working with LAME. LAME is doing some separate human trafficking stuff here. We had a woman that was human trafficked with the cartels that we helped, and they tried to retaliate against me and take my daughter in August of this year. And so the cartels are here, the blood gangs are here. It's very dangerous stuff, but we can help you if you have a human trafficking victim. We do work with the AG's office. We know how to do human trafficking evaluations and to get people safe and get them out of the state and even out of the country if we have to. We work with the Department of Justice. So all of this is to say that community health work is not siloed, right? We all have to collaborate together. And the more work we do with vulnerable populations, the more we realize we don't know everything, and we have to collaborate together. Do you want to take on this one, Mary? This is kind of that ACE to prison to early death pipeline. You guys understand the ACE information, but where it impacts women and girls going to prison and people going to prison in the early death pipeline, you may not understand how impactful it is.
So my understanding of the Girls and Women's Pathways Trauma to Prison Early Death Pipeline is we all, a lot of like what Shannon said before is women, children, men especially have a lot of trauma, a lot of sexual trauma, a lot of abuse, family abuse, a lot of generational trauma. There's a lot of trauma, and it leads to a lot of addiction, and a lot of it's not only addiction, it's a lot of mental health, and that leads to addiction. So with all of that, we have this discovered that while they were doing the research of women in prison and stuff, is that the trauma is so significant that that's what, oh gosh, that is what leads to these avenues of poverty and like the trauma. And then there's the little cycle that it goes like and then it even affects our relationships. So I am living proof of the trauma and how we interrupt it, you know. And how do we interrupt it? We interrupt the cycles. We interrupt the whole you have to start somewhere, and a lot of people are confused on where we start. Children, mother, you know what I mean? Where do we start in it all? And so that is the whole gist of how we interrupt the pipeline. We have to start with trauma informed care. We got to start with evidence-based practices. There's a lot of ceremonial stuff that my family and my people use in order to interrupt this this trauma and this through it. And so that's how we interrupt it. We got to figure out what is the root of it, and what kind of trauma, and where was the trauma. And you know, we have to ask the right questions to the women that are going through this, like where did it start for you? Because we all have a basic idea here in your mind, like where it started, and we got to heal somewhere, you know. And so the question is, where do we interrupt it? Where is it? And so I believe that once we are in these spaces to interrupt it, and we are in the advocacy part, you know, it's to be informed, like this is what happens, this is how we interrupt it, the trauma informed care, the evidence-based practices. What does self-care look like to you? You know, when we're going through these traumas, and when we're going through walking somebody through the healing journey, what does it do to you? You know what I mean? What does it do? How do you take care of your self-care? How is it that you work through these problems, these survivors, these clients, whatever you want to call them? I like to call them human beings, are my sisters. Them are my favorite. That's my favorite thing, because I work with a lot of women. So I call them my sisters. Them are my sisters in trauma and in care, in life, and in this journey. Like, these are my sisters. And so what does it do though? How does it affect you? And I think that's what this next slide is going to tell us. What are some of the symptoms that you are experiencing through vicarious trauma? What are the symptoms that you go through? A lot of it for me is I have to decompress before I get home. When I go and am on a phone call, walking through the lap system that Shannon was talking to you about, it's 6 to 8 hours, because we're calling all of the people around, all of the domestic violence shelters, from here all the way down to St. George, all the way across the whole Utah. We're trying to get an answer.
Right.
Yes, let's help save this woman. And so what does it do to you? You know, honestly, how would that feel? And how do you decompress? So I think that's what this next slide is about to explain to us. And what are the biggest challenges you face staying healthy while doing this kind of work? What does self-care look like to you? I got to ask that. What does it look like?
Well, and as a survivor, we also have to be concerned that we're going to die at 25 years early from our own trauma, right? So we have ACE scores in this work. We have ACE scores, And whether we've been to prison or not, we can die 25 years early because of our own ACE score. So vicarious trauma can take us there earlier. It can take us to ischemic heart disease earlier. It can take us to cancer earlier. It can take us to Alzheimer's and dementia earlier. So all inflammation, disease comes from inflammation. How do we reduce inflammation in our bodies, right? How do we heal our limbic system, heal our brains? There's ceremonies in different cultures that can help us heal. There's journeys, ayahuasca journeys. There's all kinds of ceremonies that you can use to heal your brain. There's red light therapy. There are meditations. There's singing bowls. There's walking meditations. There's exercise. There's dance. There's EMDR thought field therapy. There are there's a whole body of work that just came out where they healed stage 1, stage 2 Alzheimer's. And there are 10 protocols: coconut oil, red light therapy, detoxing heavy metals out of your body, using salt baths, really clean eating, getting rid of red meats, sugars. They had a whole clean food deal. Get rid of all the Teflon pans, quit cooking with aluminum foil because we're eating it. It's ending up in our bloodstreams and our brains. Getting rid of cheap plastics, and they said to stop microwaving in cheap plastics because it's leaching into our foods and going into our bloodstreams and our brains and creating inflammation in our bodies. Like, there's all these protocols, right, to stop Alzheimer's. We're more likely to die if we have high ACE scores because of the inflammation in our bodies. So the next level of this work is to keep our women from dying. Our women that we work with, that we love, change their lives. They stop using drugs. They stop hanging out with dangerous men. We help them get housed. We help them get their children back. They start going to school. They become peer leaders in the community. They start doing amazing things. And then we bury them. We bury them because of ACE. And we bury each other because of ACE. And the next level of this work is about dealing with the inflammation in our bodies and making sure that all of us that do this work don't die doing this work. It's about giving each other access as a community to healing tools so that we don't die doing this work for each other, so that we have everything that we need to stay healed and healthy in this work. That we have the yoga, that we have the meditation for one another, that we have the clean food for each other, that we have the clean water for each other, that we have the hydrogen water for each other, that we have the red light therapy, that we have the grounding tools for each other, so that we can serve the communities that need us right now, and that we can serve one another in this work, because it's just getting harder. The money's being taken away from us. We've lost over $300,000 in the last 2 years in this work. There are powerful people that want to shut down nonprofits right now. Medicaid is getting tougher. So, the work is going to get tougher. But if we come together as a community, if we do this work together, if we find solutions together, if we heal together, we find braided funding together, we can solve these issues together. I know we're running out of time and you guys have questions. Sorry to get emotional on you. It's hard work. Hard work, but I'll tell you, survivors come to this work with our whole hearts invested. We've lost so much funding in the last year and a half that I'm volunteering right now. That's how much funding we've lost in the last 2 years.
Wait, so are you guys open to questions right now?
Yes.
Awesome. So I have one actually. Have you guys looked into like the work of like Patricia Hill Collins and like her intersectionality?
So, I mean, all the work is intersectional, right? Like we serve the LGBTQIA community. I work with Project Rainbow and the queer community. We're one of the only affirming groups that goes into the prison. Like when our sisters and brothers were cutting off body parts inside of the prison, we were there for them, telling them to hold on, that
Mm,
Medicaid in the state was coming and to stop,
mm.
like trying to harm themselves. I have not heard of, is she a researcher? Is she a social
She
worker?
she kind of like developed the ideas of intersectionality along with
Oh,
I'm
okay.
sorry, I'm kind of forgetting the name already, along with Kimberly Crenshaw as
I
well.
have heard of
I
Kimberly.
think, yeah, Kimberly Crenshaw, and there's also Patricia Hill
LA?
Collins. I think their work on like intersectionality and like their
Yeah.
writings about
Yeah.
intersectionality would be like super helpful to your organization for
Oh,
sure.
yeah.
I think
Perfect.
it just brings in a lot of
It's
like
just like
things about
it's
community and
layers, right? Like
yeah,
poverty, addiction, criminal justice, like, so then you have to use these evidence-based practices, right? About oppression and empowerment and glasses half full, strength-based communication. Like you have to use all the best evidence-based practices so that you don't continue to oppress, so that you make sure you empower, so that you use the right language and so that you bring people from all the different communities so that they feel safe because they may not feel safe with me. They feel safe with Miss Sherry. They feel safe with Mary. You have to make sure that when you're going into oppressed communities that you're like not pushing your agenda onto them, that they're choosing, right? What's safe for them. And you start where they are and you use all of the best, right? Because they deserve it.
yeah, for sure. And also Miss Sherry is on, I think, as
Yay!
well.
Is
If
Miss
you
Sherry
wanted
here?
to,
Let's go back to her slide. Miss Sherry, are you here? Miss Sherry.
if she could just, I think if she speaks, her camera will definitely come up on my screen and I can
Or
pin
she
her
may
for
not want
sure.
her camera. She may just want to speak. Miss Sherry, do you want to speak?
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I think she actually disconnected from that call because I was seeing her earlier today during your presentation, but I don't see
She
her
may have come on
anymore.
and jumped off.
Mm-mm.
Dang it.
Dang, maybe she accidentally disconnected or something.
Okay. Or we called
Oh,
on
yeah.
her and she disconnected.
Yeah,
Like, you're not
maybe.
putting me on the screen.
And then, did any other participants have any other questions? If you could just raise your hand and put those questions in the chat, I'll just like allot a little bit of time to it and we'll see. And if no one does start asking questions, I might just start calling on names.
Be interesting to see who else here and what their
So
experience
then
has been.
I think I have an additional question, honestly. So then with like on, and I just want to like share my appreciation because you guys are here sharing your stories. And I think that's really powerful, especially being women in this sort of work and in this field. I think it's essential and it's crucial that you guys are here sharing your stories. Um, I did just want to ask though, so then your journey of hope, right? Is like this organization, does it just like it's just in Utah or do you guys like span across states or let's
We
mhm,
have been referred victims from other states. So
Mhm.
mhm,
human trafficking and domestic violence victims
mhm,
that weren't being served or they couldn't find resources in Idaho, North and South Dakota. I had a victim that was trying to get here from California because she had family support here. So I had a victim that I got here from California. Lots
We've
of
had.
human trafficking in the area where there were no
Mhm.
safe spaces, North, South Dakota, Idaho. So very rural situations that were happening around a rodeo, a moving rodeo where a woman was being trafficked at the rodeo. So
mhm.
Just
And
depends.
sometimes we have clients that leave Utah that go to other states and stuff, and they're still in contact with us because we're a wraparound service. We still stay in contact with them. We help them find resources in their areas. So they're it's not just here in Utah. We have clients that actually leave the state to find safer places because of the gang affiliation that is tied to their case. So we do have people in other states. We just, it's not just Utah.
I see. Thank you. Thank you.
There's a question in the chat for you, either Shannon or Mary. It says, Janelle asked, how do we as early intervention providers connect families to you if they need it? Also, do you connect families to early intervention if needed? So Janelle's background is in the Part C program, so the up to three is where she specific works. But for kids with disabilities or other traumas, they need support through an early intervention program.
So Haley Hernandez works for the state of Utah, and we have been working with Day One. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Day One. They are former gang members that are working with gang members now to stop gang violence and to walk young people out of gangs. And Haley is part of a state group that is working with them in the district attorney's office, but she has been linking us with a lot of the early intervention and nursing in-home programs and clinical in-home programs. So I'm not sure if that's a state or a county program, but she's been linking us with a lot of the state programs.
Yes, I've actually had a couple young women that were trafficked that had been in the juvenile detention center and the substance abuse program that they have for the juvenile, and I was going in weekly to meet with a couple of the girls. So we do find resources for these programs, depending on what the survivors' needs are. We work off from their program. This is something that we talk to them. We find out their needs. We find out what's available. We do a lot of research, and we have a lot of connections in the resources and then in the community. So we're able to refer and to help with the early intervention if it's needed.
We also have mentors. We have a mentor program at the prison. And Day One is kind of part of that mentor program. Pacific Island Knowledge to Actions, part of the mentor program. The USARA Peer Support Network is part of the mentor program. We have a couple hundred mentors that we're attaching to people as they walk out of prison about 6 months before they leave the prison, one-to-one. We have about 17% recidivism in that program, but we want to start attaching. There is a curriculum out of Arizona where you can get trained in about 12 technical resources on computers. And out of that program, there's a 3% recidivism rate, but you walk out making about $50,000 to $55,000 a year. And we have access to that exact same curriculum through Voc Rehab. And we want to use work opportunity credit money except that they won't let us use it in the prison right now, but Voc Rehab is using that money. So if we can change it so that we can get access to it while they're incarcerated and just doing time, the way they're accessing it in Arizona, we can bridge them with jobs walking out of the prison, making $50,000 to $55,000 a year, and reduce our recidivism to 3% in our mentoring and community health worker program. So the community health worker would bridge the resources and the mentor would walk one by one with each person, right? 3% recidivism, right? So we could shift some of that funding for prisons down to community health work and interrupt that ACE to early death pipeline, which is where the money should be, right? Like we should be spending it on children and poverty and not on prisons. Like that's where the rubber meets the road, is poverty, early intervention work, interrupt ACE. And I had talked to some big LDS officials, like they moved seminary programs across the state of Utah out of the middle schools. And there's all of these middle school buildings sitting vacant across the state of Utah that they're really not using. And I was like, what if we did community health work out of all these vacant middle school seminary buildings? And they're like, we could definitely talk about something like that, like a collaboration where community health workers came into those spaces and did community health work out of all of these vacant middle school buildings. We would need to talk about security and things like that, but what if we had community health work going on in free buildings that are already air conditioned, maintained, and sitting in communities attached to middle schools all over the entire state? In neighborhoods all over
Come
the
on.
state.
Oh, think about what we
You know
could
what I
do in
mean?
those
What if we
spaces,
had,
because
yeah, what if we had
we
like
talked about the
cradle to
women
grave?
or the children. I mean, like, where does it start? You know what I mean? And them being right next to the high schools, just think of how
The
many of the
middle.
children
It's
that
the
we could
middle school.
actually meet, and you know what I mean, where we could be
Well, we
influential
would
and
do the
stuff.
family. Yeah, it would be a wraparound community health,
Hmm.
trauma informed, cradle to grave, wraparound holistic services. But we would need that work opportunity money, something. But Robert Wood Johnson Foundation has some funding to interrupt this kind of a poverty community health. So I mean, we just need some big collaborators to come together with some big ideas. And we all need to work together to do it. And so if we could do something like that, and all of us come together, Hispanic community health workers, formerly incarcerated community health workers, Pacific Island Knowledge to Action, the LDS Church, like if we could all come together and think about really powerful, impactful ways to use our resources together, I could see us doing some amazing things in rural spaces and where there's severe poverty. I mean, we have double the national average of sexual assault in Utah. So 1 in 10 will be sexually assaulted in the United States, 1 in 5 in Utah. 1 in 3 homes is experiencing domestic violence in Utah. The trauma to prison pipeline is huge here, right? But we don't talk about it. We talk about suicide here, and we talk about addiction here. We talk about opiate overdose here. We talk about suicide here, but we don't talk about that trauma to early death pipeline and the suffering. But we could interrupt by healing, trauma-informed, trauma-responsive care, cradle to grave, trauma-informed resources, community health work in those spaces doing trauma-informed care. So it's just something for you guys to consider and think about, and we would love to collaborate with anyone that wants to do this work with us.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. I'm not really, if there is any questions right now, you guys can come off mute, but I'm not seeing any in the chat.
I hear when I
I'll
talk,
just
it's
leave
like
it open a
drinking from a
little.
fire hydrant. Might be overwhelming.
All right. I think I'm just gonna call it now because I'm not getting any questions, but I just wanted to thank you guys again for sharing that information and just for sharing your stories, because I think it's so important that we continue to do it. And I think it's also important that we kind of just promote community and just kind of having us come together and help each other. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Hey, thank you.